afternoon, everyone. Sorry I'm a few minutes late, but welcome to the City Council's reconstituted Budget and Audit Committee. Would the clerk please call the roll and let's establish a quorum?
Councilmember Jennings.
Here.
Councilmember Guerra.
Here.
Councilmember Chenier. Here. And Mayor Steinberg.
Here. We do have a quorum, a full complement of members. Can I ask Councilmember Guerra if he would consider being vice chair of the committee? Is that
Sure, thank you.
all right? Okay. Very good.
We may wish to pass the consent calendar first, which is your 2020 regular meeting schedule.
Okay. Moved and seconded the regular meeting schedule, which will never be changed even to a moment's notice. Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstain. Excellent. Okay.
And then do we want to vote on item 3, which is selection of a vice chair?
Okay. I nominate Vice Mayor Guerra. Councilmember Guerra, former Vice Mayor.
I will second that nomination.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstain. Very good. Thank you. All right, let us move now to the meat of the agenda. Item 4, correct?
Item 4 is the 2018-19 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or the CAFR.
Can you see that? Okay. All right. Good afternoon. My name is Osvaldo Lopez. I am the accounting manager, and today I'm pleased to share with you the year-end results for the fiscal year 2018-19 and the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, also known as the CAFR. The CAFR presents the city's financial conditions and the results of activities for the fiscal year that ended June 30, 2019. As required by the Governmental Accounting Standard Board, or GASB, the city implemented 2 new accounting and financial reporting standards during fiscal year 19. You can see the list on page 2 of your staff report. The independent audit firm Macias, Gini & O'Connell have audited our financial statement as required by the city charter. I'm pleased to report that we had a clean audit and received an unmodified opinion. Now, moving on into the financial results, in fiscal year 18-19, general fund tax revenue exceeded budget by $11.2 million. This is reflected on page 3 of the staff report right here. Let me show you. Here's the 11 million, and there is a breakdown if you're interested in the details. In addition to those 11.2 million, department operation resulted in 8 million in savings. You can also see the number here, page 3 of your report, but we have additional details on page 5. So this page here, just break it down by department. At the conclusion of the year-end process, 19.5 million in one-time resources equivalent to less than 2% of fiscal year 19 approved revenue and expenditures budget will be added to the available fund balance to general fund. It is important to note that for CAFR purposes, general fund and Measure U are 2 different funds. So in addition to the 19.5 million related to general fund, we also have an additional 6.5 million in new resources that were generated by Measure U. This means that the total new one-time resources are approximately 27 million. And the mid-year report will go into additional details on recommendation for the uses of these resources.
Can I, done?
No, I have more.
No, keep going.
Okay.
Then go.
I'm pleased to report that thanks to adopted council policies, we continue to make progress on setting aside resources to address our liabilities. For example, the balance in the general fund economic uncertainty reserve at year-end was 55.2 million, or 11.2% of general fund expenditure budget. And the balance in the city's other post-employment benefit trust was approximately 49.9 million, which is equivalent to 12.5% of the estimated OPEB liability. Finally, I would like to take a moment to recognize the fiscal staff of all our city's departments for the good work in closing the books for the year ended June 30, 2019, and helping the city to get another clean audit opinion. In special, I want to say thank you to the staff in the accounting division for their hard work and long hours to finish the CAFE on time. With that, I'm available to answer questions and would like to ask the committee to pass a motion forwarding the report to City Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I just, because in my pre-briefing, I just want to make sure that I get my numbers reconciled here. You mentioned 27 million, and in my head, I was thinking 36 million, but different. Now, I knew they were different, but are we gonna add numbers
get to that.
eventually? Okay.
Mayor, we'll get to that, but
We'll
that's
get to
adding in
that.
the new revenues that we're proposing in the mid-year report.
Good. But this 27, they carry over.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Is there any public testimony on the CAFR? Good, I just will say good news again. Mr. Lopez, thank you for bringing us $27 million. We appreciate it. Any questions? None. Okay.
I'll move the, requires a motion to
To
move
receive and file.
Receive and file. Do you need a motion for that?
No, I do need, thank you. Thank you, Councilmember. From
Let's
Vice
move.
Chair Guerra.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Oppose, abstain. Very good. It's been received and filed. Let's now move to the next item, which is item 5.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. My name is Tara Filipich, and I am the Budget Manager. The item before you is the fiscal year 2019-20 mid-year budget review. The focus of this year's mid-year report is to include only mission-critical items and departmental corrections and cleanup. This slide shows the prior fund balance, and as Avala just explained, we had positive revenue and savings from expenditures in fiscal year 18-19. The fiscal year 19-20 approved budget also resulted in additional resources. In this report, we are recommending $12.9 million increase in general and Measure U fund revenues, primarily from sales and use taxes and property taxes. Additionally, the mayor has been working with the state controller on the city's 2017 gas tax audit finding. On January 7th, the mayor was able to obtain a letter from the state confirming that the city is not required to repay $2 million to the gas tax fund.
Can you repeat that again, please?
Additionally, the mayor has been working with the state controller. I do want to point out that the resolution does not include the language to release these funds. This will be included in the council item for next week. As reflected on this slide, these changes result in net resources available in the fiscal year in the amount of $81 million. Since budget adoption, almost $46 million has been committed by council actions to date as shown. On the next 2 slides, I will be summarizing the mid-year augmentations included in this report. The recommendations in the general fund total $2.3 million. Please note that funding is included for the city's illegal dumping program. This cost is offset by an increase in the general fund tax resulting from the recent solid waste rate increase approved by council. The recommendations in Measure U result in a savings of approximately $93,000. The approved budget included $7.5 million for the Mayor-Council Capital Investment Program. We are requesting that $6.8 million be returned to fund balance as they will not be needed this fiscal year. $7.5 million in debt service is included in the out years of the forecast. Partially offsetting these savings, request total $6.7 million. This is primarily in the police department, which includes adding 20 community service officers, which are limited term positions through June 2022, and purchasing 20 new vehicles and a rescue vehicle, and funding for overtime. After the mid-year recommendations, the revised fiscal year 19-20 available fund balance will be approximately $33 million. This forecast differs from the one in your report in that ongoing funding for the community service officers is included in your report. As stated previously, these positions are limited term. This forecast has been updated to reflect this. While we have settled with most of our employee organizations, We still have 2 contracts set to expire within the next 12 months. As you can see, even though we show positive results through fiscal year 2021, we are projecting expenditures to exceed revenues beginning in fiscal year 21-22. Following is a fiscal year 2021 budget development timeline. The City Council hearings will be in May and June. Like the mid-year report, the focus of this year's budget will be to include only mission-critical items and departmental corrections cleanup requests. I thank department staff, the city manager, his assistant city managers, the finance director, and of course the budget office for all their work in the mid-year process. Staff in the various departments and I are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Much good presentation, appreciate it. Let us take questions from the member. We do have public testimony. You want to hear from the public first? Okay, let's do that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 6 speakers on this item. The first is Timothy Davis, then Katie Fleming, then Christina Knivza.
Thank you. Timothy Davis, President of the Sacramento Police Officers Association. I'm here to speak in favor of the mid-year adjustments. The police department, for a long time, has struggled to achieve staffing levels that are sufficient to meet the needs of the community and the public expectation. And this is because we've struggled to hire police officers. We've struggled to fill the positions that we have. In addition, even if we had filled all the position, we still wouldn't have enough officers to meet the needs that the community expects of us. What these 20 CSO positions will do is allow us to bring in another resource to achieve some of the needs that we need. In addition to that, these 20 CSOs will serve as a pipeline. So these are limited term positions. When we hire these CSOs, we can hire people who are in college to work part-time, young people as they're trying to figure out where they want to work in the areas of law enforcement. Once we get them in the door, we can help prepare them to transition from the position of CSO to police officer. And we found that as we've used CSO positions, we've been successfully able to transition applicants who might not be ready to be a police officer now, but through that experience to be able to move over there. In addition to that, these pipeline the employees also take a lot of workload off of our police officers. So if they're out there taking a collision report, they might free an officer up for 3 or 4 hours so that they can go handle other tasks. Also, the vehicles that are included in the budget are needed. Our officers we don't have enough vehicles to meet our needs, and so that will allow us some help there. The last thing I want to talk about is with the soccer stadium opening up, these CSOs will be integral in helping us to be able to achieve the needs of traffic control around that arena once it opens. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, appreciate it. Thank you, Tim.
Next speaker is Katie Fleming, then Christina Niazeva.
Hi, my name is Katie Fleming. I'm here on behalf of the Fuel Network, the Family, Unity, Education, and Legal Network, as are the next few speakers. I'm a fuel removal defense attorney, and I wanted to thank the city for the continued funding of the program. I also wanted to give a couple of highlights from last year, and to show you some of the work we've been doing and the work we want to continue to do in 2020. So in 2019, we provided legal consultations for 207 Sacramento residents. That does not include the consultations that we provide at monthly visits to the Yuba County Detention Facility, the immigration detention facility most close to Sacramento, where Sacramento residents are often held for their removal proceedings. We also provided Know Your Rights to over 4,000 Sacramento residents. We provided individual representation in removal proceedings to over 30 Sacramento residents in this past year. And one of our clients is here to speak today about her experience with the program. We also recruited and hired a rapid response attorney to work within the Sacramento ICE processing facility to respond to those urgent needs when somebody is in imminent risk of deportation. And finally, we started the Sacramento Attorney of the Day program, which is only the second program in the nation to provide representation to individuals on the day of their hearing if they do not have an attorney. So it's a sort of a model to help reach more people. And through that program, we've seen just how much need there is. There was a new court opened here in Sacramento, Immigration Court, as of September last year, and so we're really excited to see what we can do next year to continue to provide representation to individuals in removal proceedings. And with that, I'd like to introduce a client of the Fuel Network. Her name is Christina Niazeva, and she's here to speak about her experience within the program.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
And following Christina is Genevieve Levy, then Mayo Vang.
Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So I'm sorry if I'll make some mistakes in my speech.
Don't you worry. You just
Yeah.
you're with friends here. Okay.
Yeah, thank you a lot. So I'm here to say that it's very necessary to continue, and it's very important to continue the foundation of this program. And so, you know, when you left everything in your previous life, and you should run, you should save your family, you should understand that everything is gone, and you should start a new life. So the situation in Russia that was, my family was in this situation, that our religion was in prohibition by Supreme Court, and we reached the border between Mexico, and then we have our first master court in San Francisco. So at that court, the judge said that he wanted us to find an attorney. And he gave us a list with this office of immigrants attorneys. And then we didn't have that amount of money to pay for the attorney, but we still needed the help. And we didn't know what to do. And then when I first came at this office of California Rural Assistance, I found very helpful people. You know, I mean, who really wants to help you. Yeah, and they are very nice and kind. That's why, so when they call back, I didn't expect it. I couldn't believe, and I just couldn't realize that it was us. That's why we began a huge work, and now we have documents here. So my family here just because of this program, I think. So thanks to our attorney, Katie Fleming, and the whole team, the whole office. So, and of course, thanks to the administration of Sacramento and the US. And I think this work, the work of this office, is great help and the ground from which we can begin our new life. Thank you for this.
Thank you for your courage, really, to come forward and tell your story. It really, you'll never know how many people you've helped just by your willingness to speak up. And we are a welcoming community, an inclusive community.
Thank you.
And thank you. And thank you to Councilman Guerra for leading this fuel effort as well. It's really important to the values of our city and the people of our city. Thank you.
Thank you a lot.
Okay.
Thanks.
Next speaker is Genevieve Levy, then Mayo Vang, then Diana Campos.
Thank you. I feel like whenever I come to speak about the Fuel Network, I'm sort of preaching to the choir. I know you guys are a very favorable committee, but just wanted to be here on behalf of not only the Fuel Network, but Sacramento Food Bank and Family Services, who's one of the funded partners of the Fuel Network, providing direct immigration legal services. And to give you an example, I know sometimes you might look and go, oh, that's not that much funding. What are they really able to do with it? Sometimes it's about leveraging the funding. So an example would be earlier this year when a client came to us and we were able to help with DACA through funding from another grant. But she was also eligible for SIGIS, which is special immigration juvenile status, but under the other grant, we can't bill for both. So what we were able to do was help with this funding for DACA, this funding for SIGIS, and therefore she was able to have this more permanent adjustment of status, which is much better, obviously, than temporary DACA. Another example I wanted to share is the power of the Fuel Network. So there's two different listservs. One is for legal service providers, one is for community members. I'm on the community member one, and our immigration attorney is on the legal provider, but we all get lots of requests for assistance and help, and what do you think about this? What do you think about this? We're really helping each other. There was a request that came in for help from an educator in the San Juan Unified School District, and it was a week before a court case was due for a juvenile, 14-year-old juvenile, and this was his last chance, and he was going to be deported. And our immigration attorney was able to take on the case pro bono. And what she was able to do was file for custody of special immigrant juvenile findings in family court before the next hearing, was able to appear at the removal hearing with him. And therefore, he's basically in a stay now until 3 years from now when that's adjudicated. But he's in the custody of his mother. He's safe and stable. And so thank you for your continued support. We hope to be able to continue to do the great work here in Sacramento.
Genevieve, just one quick comment.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you know, obviously, how I feel about all of this. I do think, though, it is important to say, and Councilmember Guerra and I have talked about this, that it is important that we begin thinking towards the future about a funding partnership between the city and the foundation world and maybe other governmental entities as well, because I'm concerned that if the surpluses aren't there and we go into maybe some tougher times, that we continue this. Maybe there won't be as much of a need to continue it in future years, although there will be. But we really need to begin thinking seriously, because I don't know that $500,000 is going to be there every year, and that's just important to say, and we've got to work on that together. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Mayo Vang, then Diana Campos.
Good afternoon. My name is Mao Vang. I'm the Health and Youth Program Manager at La Familia. We are extremely honored. Oh, from District 5, of course. We are extremely honored and grateful to be a partner of the Field Network, providing lots of services such as Know Your Rights, family emergency preparedness, support groups, and individual therapy to our most vulnerable population, the immigrant community. I want to share just a brief story of a young man that we've helped in the last year named Cesar. Unfortunately, he's in school today and could not be here. Cesar, his father is a U.S. citizen, and he was born in Mexico. In the last couple of years, him and his father has been working to get his residency to take care of his father. His father became very sick and was on dialysis. And that took couples of years and didn't really go anywhere. And last year, in 2019, with the help of the Field Network, connecting him to the legal representation and attorneys, he was able to do that. In August 2019, him and his father flew out to the city of Juarez in Mexico to obtain his residency before his 18th birthday. On October 3rd, he received his residency status right before his 18th birthday on November 1st. And La Familia and the Field Network was extremely joyed to hear this news. Unfortunately, what was not expected, a month later, on December 2nd, his father passed away, leaving this 18-year-old young man on his own. And Cesar is one of the few stories that you'll hear, but there's so many people that are impacted from this Field Network and the Field Partnership. And yes, just yesterday, he came into our office to bring us his actual green card, and we were in awe and joy and happy for him. But this young man, as we help him navigate the rest of his life, we're helping him go through individual therapy, support groups, finding him a job at 18-year-old, all alone.
Ms. Vang, your time is complete. Will you make your final comment?
And I just want to say that this would not have been possible without the Field Network and the partnership and how the impact that it makes for the whole community. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our final speaker is Diana Campos.
Hi, thank you for having us here. My name is Diana Campos. I am a community organizer with Sacramento Act. We are the host of the Rapid Response Hotline. And I was formerly undocumented, so this really touches my personal life. The work that is being done through the partners is incredibly important, right? Last year alone, we've received over 1,000 phone calls to the Rapid Response Hotline. Phone calls that could determine whether a family is going to be separated or not. There's a specific case that comes to mind of Jacqueline. She is a 19-year-old who and her father is a single father who was recently detained by immigration, and so currently she's being helped. But it's a family of 6 children, right? And so if the Rapid Response Hotline didn't exist, if Fuel didn't exist, we wouldn't have access to supporting and helping families. As Genevieve pointed out recently, this isn't just happening between our own funding partners. This is also networks that we're building with districts, right? And really ensuring that children are being taken care for at every level of their daily lives. So we appreciate the funding. We ask even for more funding, right? Because this is really changing the narrative of what undocumented families are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you for coming out today. We appreciate it and all the work that you do. So let us turn it to the council members now, or the committee members, I should say, and begin with Councilman Chenier.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Don, I think a lot of this is for you. But one quick question first, just on the Aquatic Center. My understanding when the council voted for that is that the first choice would be to pay it back out of bonds from Measure U, assuming we do those bonds, and the second choice would be general fund. Is that still the case?
If I can clarify, council member, what we actually brought forward with the Aquatic Center was, so as soon as council decided they may do a bond, the treasurer's office brought forward a reimbursement agreement. So the Aquatic Center was to be paid back with the year-end results from the general fund, and then when we bond,
Right.
the city can reimburse the general fund from the bond.
Right. Is that still the case?
Yes, it is.
So if we do the bonds, there'll be $14 million going back to the general fund.
Correct.
Based on that amount?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear on that.
Yeah.
Thanks. So I have some questions around kind of the police budget. And I just want to say a couple things. One is I think the CSOs are a great piece of the puzzle and really important. I understand, and I forget, Chief, what the number was, 38% increase in response time, something like that. Because we had more bodies, and I think it's also a great pipeline to get folks into the academies or get folks into policing. So I'm very much in favor of that. I think also it's important because we're matching kind of the skills and competencies to the need. So we're not paying for things we don't have to have, but we are paying for getting the job done. We have so many calls and complaints. I assume my council members have the same thing, needing additional police. I think this is a good thing, and I'm very supportive of adding the 20 positions. But I have some questions, and I'm not sure. We've gone back and forth a little bit, and so I'm tried to make this as simple as I can for what you've educated me about is a complicated thing. So let me ask this, and if you don't have the answers today, I know this will be coming to the council, and I'd love to sit down with you and work through this. So at the beginning of this year, how many positions did we have in the police department?
$1,070.
And how many officers?
I'm actually going to ask the police department to come up and they can break that down.
Okay, thanks.
As of Friday, we have,
No. When we started the year, how many officers did we have?
You had 617
yourself for the record,
positions.
too.
sure, Brenda Delgadillo, Police Administrative Manager,
Okay, we had 617 positions.
Police officer
police
positions.
officers.
Positions.
Yes.
How many police officers did we have?
Oh, filled. Let me,
Was that 1,070?
Yeah, 1,070 positions in the
Yeah.
FTEs, yeah. But that covers a very wide range of everything.
I understand.
617 positions, officer positions.
Okay,
I don't know what we call them.
1,070, so what is it, 617?
No, 1,070 employee
Employees,
FTEs. in the-
670
No, 617
positions.
police officer positions.
Got it.
And what I want to know is how many were filled as we started the year.
As of July 5th, we had 560 police officers working.
So we had 57 vacancies, day one. Would that be correct?
Well, we can't, there are 9 that we can't fill for cannabis positions that we hold vacant.
Okay. So you had 45 vacancies.
Yeah.
So, Dawn, maybe this is your question again. I'm just trying to understand. So in that situation where you have a certain number of positions, a certain number that are filled, and a certain number of vacancies, how do you budget for that? Do you ignore the vacancies and just budget fully for the positions? Do you budget differently for the vacancies?
Citywide, we budget for all positions. If it's a vacant position, we bring it back down to what we believe an officer will cost in the first year. So we budget a full year of the position for all positions citywide.
So we budgeted for 617 positions.
Correct.
Correct. And those were fully funded police positions versus
Correct, except there
CSOs
are-
or something
yeah.
like that.
There are the 9 that we've got associated with something that they're not filling, so.
So had we not filled any of those positions for the year, had they been open, and I asked the chief what it cost, and you can get me a more refined number if you need to. He said it costs about $140,000 per, I don't know what the right language
The
is.
default
but
value
police
for,
FTE.
the default value for an officer is about 122.
122,000?
A CSO too is
No,
about.
not FTE, I'm talking about kind of at a police level.
Got it.
Versus someone else, so 122,000? So if I multiply 122,000, if we had not filled any positions all year, including the cannabis ones, which I know there's a reimbursement, so I would multiply 122 times 57 to get the number, basically salary savings that would have accrued had we not filled a single position. Is that
Correct.
fair? Okay. I don't know what that number is. I don't have that. Howard's doing that for me. 122 times 50.
122,000 times
57.
57.
$5.6 million.
Howard got 6.9 million.
We're backing out the,
How much is it? I'm sorry.
You go 40.
I'm at
It's
5.6.
45 without the
5.69.
cannabis officers.
And why
It's-
are we not, I mean, we didn't fill the cannabis positions?
No, we have 9 officers and 3 sergeants that we don't fill. Just because if
We not
my
budget for
understanding is
them?
correct, it's because of the permit money.
Have we,
Budget them, but we also
budgeted
budget
for
them with a
them.
reimbursement. So if they don't fill them, they can't meet the reimbursement, so it kind of
Got it.
creates
Cancels
a
out.
net
I'm
zero.
do 45, Jay. You're making the same
45.
point.
It's 45.
45 times 122,000,
So 5.4 million.
5.4 million.
Okay. So, and I understand that week to week, the number of vacancies fluctuates. I get that. So we spent, I'm trying to look at some of the other information that you sent me. We spent, when, on this chart you gave me, is this fiscal year? When you say 2019, what are you
Yes,
talking
that was fiscal year 19,
about? So 1920 or 1819?
18-19,
Okay.
sorry.
So last budget year, last fiscal year, we spent $9.5 million.
No, we actually spent
overtime.
12.8 million. We spent 9.5.
12.8, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
12.8
We spent
million
9.5
in
over the
overtime.
budget.
But 9.5 that we had not budgeted.
Correct.
And that money came from where?
From the savings from the vacant positions in the department?
Okay, so that's about half of it, right? Because you had 5.4 million at the most, unless you had more
But
vacancies.
remember, we have
come open.
1,000 positions. We focused only on officers, so there's savings from other positions as well.
Okay. So if we're looking at that over the course of the year, are we able to see how much money we spent? And there's a reason for where I'm going here, but are we able to see how much money we spent on people versus how much we saved on vacancies?
It all rolls, I mean, labor is
No.
labor. I mean, we can look at,
Right, how much,
know,
how much
we
did
don't
we,
have-
how much
because-
went out in salary versus money that we didn't have to go out in salary that we then used for overtime? That's my question.
It also doesn't net NBP, so it's not 48,
Yeah.
it's 18.
right? So the financial system is good, but it isn't going to get to that because the HR data where the vacancies are is tracked separately. When we load labor into the financial system, it's one set number. They have $100 million for labor.
So we don't know how
And
many.
then we know how we spend it because it gets recorded by the accountants in exact lines. When the paycheck happens, overtime hits overtime, regular hours hits regular hours, out of class hits out of class. So we can see where the spending is, but.
So can't we see where the spending is and then just deduct it from what you have budgeted here so we'll know where we are? I mean, I don't understand how we're not tracking.
So the department was over budget at the end of 19, as was shown in the CAFR. They are projecting to be over budget in this year if they don't get the mid-year augmentation, which includes additional overtime funding.
$2 million.
Correct.
Could I follow up on this line, or you can continue?
Let me finish. All right, so, and vacancies could have gone up or down. I mean, and I've heard from various folks, 100 vacancies, 60 vacancies, 35 vacancies, all of the above, right? So that fluctuates, I get that. Do we know, or through mid-year, do we ever do like a point-in-time stop to take a look at all this? We should know, we kind of know where we are on our overall budget, so I'm assuming we know how much has gone out, and that's why you're saying we need an extra $2 million.
Correct. And we work with the departments. Part of the mid-year review that the manager is responsible for providing to council includes an exercise where all departments, and actually we do it at quarterly, we do a first quarter.
So from
and a
our-
third quarter, we do that look.
So
with
from
the
our
department.
account, and I apologize if I'm being inarticulate, because I'm trying to figure this out with you, or for me. From our accounting department, if we go through June 30th, could we know how much we spent on salary and how much we didn't spend on salary, and then compare that to our budget? I assume somewhere in there is where we figure out we need an extra $2 million. How do we know we
And
need?
we're doing it on projections from payroll. Every 2 weeks payroll
Right.
hits.
So-
And so the departments are actually tracking it much more closely, and they're looking at their vacancies and they're looking at actual payroll
So
going
could we
out.
do that as of December
did it
31st for half a year?
We did it
Through
as of,
December, really.
yeah, it was like late November, just based on the projections were due mid-December. And so we do it as,
5 months.
yeah, about
You
5
have all that.
months. Yes,
Could we see that? Not this moment, but is that something you can send to us?
yes.
Okay, and that will show me how much we've spent on salary. And then I can deduce from that how much money has gone into overtime that would have gone to salary because we didn't need positions. Does it have position control also, so we know how many positions were filled at that
Tracked in a
point?
separate,
It's
they
tracked
can
separately.
provide you their
that's another
spreadsheet
system.
from mid-year of what there was, but it is not in the same system.
Okay, let me try something else then.
And also, as part of the vacancies, we don't have enough positions for the people who go through the academy. So they're on non-budgeted positions, and their salaries do go, the ones that we don't have positions for, that cost does go against the salary savings as well.
So we don't budget for some of the folks in the academy?
Nope.
Should we put that in the budget if we expect to run academies if we have all of these vacancies on an ongoing
That's
basis?
just, I mean,
chief
it's more
will say yes.
positions. If you want to give us more positions.
I mean, we've
Well,
been managing the
I
academy
don't
by
care.
vacancies,
I mean, I want us to have a real budget so we know where we are and what we're spending.
right? I mean,
How do we not budget for something that we know is going to happen?
well, we don't budget for vacancies, and so for things like the academies, we know that there are vacancy savings just because there's normal attrition that will cover that. the last few years have been hard because we've had to increase service levels as well. And so the department is tracking it and watching it, but we do a balance between adding real positions and then using non-budgeted positions for the academy.
Okay, I'm going to have to learn this language at some point. So let me ask a different question then. These are the 20 CSO positions, which run us about, Chief said 80,000.
77, yeah.
77,000.
77 and change.
Okay. So not quite half, but significantly less, 45% less than having a full police officer. That's a good thing. And it's done a lot in our neighborhoods by providing additional service. So I think that's a great thing. And again, I'm very supportive of that. Why are we only doing limited term on these positions?
Well, maybe I can answer that. So the thought was that to address some of this overtime, we would bring the CSOs in to help offload some of the work, and over the course of 2.5 years, we would transition these CSOs to fill some of the vacancies, and then those positions can go away if we can fill the number of vacancies we have. Now, we're going to look at it again in 2 years.
If it's a good idea now, why is it not a good idea ongoing? Because we know we need extra person power. Chief, you want to come up and
I
ask?
think what we're saying is, we're keeping the positions, but we believe we can get savings to transition them into full-time positions.
Both,
Through overtime
actually.
savings.
'Cause I don't know what the average length of job for a CSO is. How long do those folks
So,
stay?
to answer the limited term part, one, it's in our contract with the union, so can't violate that. And
Tim's
two,
right there. We can work this out right today.
well, and two, they're really meant to be a pipeline to the police officer position.
But I assume we would try to continue to fill those.
Absolutely.
Or backfill those because we need that pipeline on an ongoing basis.
Correct.
Okay, so.
So the answer is, yeah, we can project that all the way out and just keep them ongoing, the positions. We can.
Okay, but I guess my question is, if they're limited term positions, and this is more of a Don question, why are we not using one-time money? Why does it show this as an ongoing cost?
It's an ongoing cost for 2.5 years, and
Okay.
then it drops off.
That's correct. It drops
So
off
it's
in
gonna
year
go-
23.
So you've taken that out of our 23 budget?
Correct.
That 1.6 million?
You can
or
see on
whatever?
the mid-year, under the forecast, the mid-year Measure U augmentation line, you'll see that in '23, we dropped from 2.5 million to 884,000. That is the CSOs.
Okay.
And these CSOs, the 20, are in complement to the 30 we've already got.
No, I understand
So we do
that.
have some in the budget. Okay.
I understand that. So I want to go back to something the city manager just said. So one of the reasons, and there are multiple reasons, and they're all good reasons that we're having the CSOs, is to try to decrease the amount of overtime, which is costing us almost $13 million last year. I don't know what do we think it's going to cost us this year? You must have an estimate if we're putting in $2 million more. Okay, you can come back to that. I guess the question is, if we can hire 1.6 CSOs for every police officer position.
From a cost perspective.
From a cost perspective, how much of this overtime will be reduced, and how quickly can we start doing that? Howard says the city manager says we can start hiring these folks in 11 days.
No, the academy is 11 weeks.
Oh, 11 weeks?
That's overpromising a little bit.
So how quickly will overtime decrease when we get these folks? And is there, I know we're having a lot of challenges finding recruits. Will there be the same level of challenge in filling these positions?
We have not had the same challenge filling CSOs,
Great.
and both with numbers and diversity. The overtime question, I could not answer how much it's going to go down, because the other thing, it's numerous benefits of doing this. One is the recruiting thing that you've already mentioned, but it's also freeing up officers to do officer things. And so that will reduce our response time to critical violent calls. And so in other words, right now we have officers handling traffic accidents, cold burglary reports, and it delays our time getting to more critical things. So I couldn't answer the exact number of overtime, but just obviously it will reduce our response time like it already has, and it should reduce our overtime some, but how much I I could not calculate that.
So are these, so what I just heard, part of what I just heard, and again, I'm neutral on it, on this piece, but this may not be a one-time deal where we want these folks, we have a serious challenge in filling positions, right? Or we've had one. We don't have nearly as many as we did when the recession hit, or after the recession. We're still way down in positions in the budget. Why would we, what I was hearing is if these folks that we're going to hire, these 20, can do traffic and take reports and do other things like that, why would we not make them permanent and make those positions permanent so we can free up officers to do officer stuff? I mean, I'm trying to see what the logic is.
Well, the reason I asked the staff to put that as a 2.5 year, almost like a pilot to see what it does to overtime. The other factor that we haven't talked about yet here is what's going to happen over the next 2.5 years. If there's more things that the police department is going to get involved with that would require more labor, it's going to be a different calculus when we look at it for fiscal year 23 planning. So it's kind of a hedge saying, okay, let's do this as a stopgap to see if we can bring the overtime down to help with all the things the chief was talking about, but let's reevaluate it and see what that looks like down the road.
Chief, how long do you think it'll take you to get 20 folks through the 11 weeks and kind of on board as far as
11 weeks was right.
recruiting?
Was it 11 weeks?
The academy?
Yeah.
I think it's 8 weeks.
Okay.
Six or
Somewhere
8 weeks.
between 8 and 11
But
weeks.
we have to go through the hiring process,
Right.
obviously. So that takes backgrounds, and so it'll probably be a year before we have all 20, but it's a fluid process as they get hired.
And have we budgeted in that manner, or are we just going to have more salary savings from budgeting for all
Well,
these
they start
folks at the
getting
same
paid by,
Sorry?
when they're in the academy, they're being paid.
Oh, no, I understand. But it's going to take you time to do
To
recruitment.
answer your question, it happens, effective the approval of the mid-year budget. So there will be potential salary savings if there's a space between a gap between getting approved and then the CSOs actually coming on board. So there will be some additional savings.
Okay.
So the mid-year includes 5 months of labor for this year, for the remainder. And most often when we do new positions at mid-year, those resources, while they're not necessarily needed all for labor, it's for the one-time cost of bringing all these employees on too. So it will help with the academy and the costs associated with that. On your question on the overtime, they are anticipating to be over by 2 million again. When we increased it last year by 2 million, that was a one-time. So this is again, if the 2 million is similar
But
to
on
last year.
what's the base?
The base, their base overtime budget is $3.3 million.
So, okay.
They were at 12.8 last year, and that they're expecting to be at about the same this year.
So we're 7 million short for this year.
Right, but it's the vacancies.
Right.
It's the vacancies. But I mean, at its most, we were looking at getting 5.4 million if we had, whatever, 45 vacancies all year long. We're not going to have that.
But again, that's just officers. So there are other staff as well, record staff
Okay.
and sergeants, lieutenants.
So I don't want to take any more time. I've used more than I should, but I think you understand where I'm trying to get to, I'm hoping. So I would look forward to sitting down with you guys and Brenda as well and figuring out kind of like a point in time, whatever that date was that you cut off for mid-year, see where we were there, and finding a way, I think, for this is a significant amount of money. I'm sure we will find money, and we'll have to find another 7 million within vacancies or wherever by the end of the year to fund this. So again, we seem to be able to find money for important things. This is an important thing, but I'd like to be able to have the council, or at least a budget committee, Mr. Mayor, be able to track this and not wait like 2.5 years to see if this is successful, but maybe do it at 6-month increments to see how many we've hired, what they're doing. I think this, again, it's the right thing to do for the city. It's the right thing to do for our neighborhoods. Finding, and this goes kind of across the board, finding the right skill sets and skill levels for the jobs that we have is really important. We shouldn't be paying more for certain things, but we shouldn't be paying less either. So if we can kind of work together to figure out some kind of system that we could have, so this budget committee will know where you are on an ongoing basis, we won't have to go through this again.
One of the things I might suggest is that as we do these quarterly updates, maybe we bring that to the Budget and Audit Committee that we send out to the council so we can track that better. And then the other thing on the overtime, and I'll leave this because we'll come back and work through some of these issues with you, is that the hope is that we won't have the same level of issues that required overtime that we had last year, and that we're over the hump on some of those things.
And that's where I started, is if we're hiring these folks to get overtime down, why don't they pay for themselves sooner? But if we're doing more stuff, that's a different rationale. And I just think we need to be honest about why we're doing it and what we're doing and what our expectations are. And I've heard, frankly, varying reasonings for doing these things and seen all kinds of numbers that some contradict themselves.
I think it's both, actually. So, but let's sit
Yeah,
down.
but we should be straight about it and say, this is what we should pay. And if our police department costs us an extra $7 or $12 million, people need to know that as well.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn it over to Councilman Guerra in a minute, but I just don't want to lose this particular train unless you were going to ask about this, Eric. So Councilman Chenier is raising, I think, a very important point across the board, not just with the police department, and that is this whole question of overtime, right? Which becomes necessary logically when you have vacancies. I mean, that's because then the existing people have to work harder. But there isn't any real-time understanding of the relationship between hiring people permanently and the reduction in overtime. And then, is there a relationship between that lack of real-time reporting and the fact that the CAFR traditionally, and this is a good thing for us in a way, shows more money than it always shows, since I've been here anyways, shows a carryover in terms of this year, $27 million. So all of that is really important and relevant because we understand that in some ways we have to budget based on projection. We understand that. But the more real-time understanding and information we have, the better. And then finally, I think whether it's our city auditor or our efficiency experts who are working with us and are going to report back in March, I believe, that this whole issue of how to reconcile the permanent staffing versus the overtime is really, really important because if we can institutionalize just savings of $5 million a year, I'm just making that up, because we're doing this in the smartest way possible, then that money can go to young people or to other causes that too often get sometimes not as much attention as they should. Okay? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have to get to closed session here soon, so I'll try to make this quick. On this point here with the CSOs, I also think it's a very positive thing. I'm actually going to take it in a different look. Mr. Mayor, you worked on the linked learning legislation statewide that helped create some of the academies, particularly the one in Hiram Johnson, the Law Academy there. And we've put some support and funding for the LEX program also at Sac State that helps kind of train folks. And we've been working with them to recruit into our department. And just talking to one of the officers that had the opportunity to be a CSO, even through the EOP, I think it's a positive thing. I'd even like to say that I want to figure out how long-term we work on this. I know Mr. Davis, who is leaving the room already, an alum of Hiram Johnson, would probably like to see how we look at better linking the law academies, the LEX programs, the CSOs, and our hiring better, so that if we truly want to recruit from our communities, that we have a more of a pipeline from folks in our community who can take advantage of good-paying jobs such as this. So as we move forward with this, I'd like to see kind of, how can we better piece these together? And there are a number of different law academies throughout the city, so I'd like to better see how they link better on the workforce training side. Very positive, I think, also to help us achieve response time. I know that that's been an issue in my council district where folks throughout from the south to the north have asked for more response time, and we understand the vacancies. Second, I want to thank the city manager for recognizing the need for more illegal dumping enforcement and including it in the city budget. This is unfortunately a cancer we find in our community that people will dump in random parts, and many times it's our most low-income areas. And so the faster we can address this, and also looking at abatement. So I hope we can look at better ways to address and target folks who are doing this kind of work, this kind of illegal scofflaw work in our community. And lastly, the fuel network. I think the speaker spoke, clearly about how impactful it is for not only the kids that are going through our school, but the employees and workers who live in our city who are just trying to do what they need to do, and having this resource. And when we talk about cost effectiveness, I think they've shown that cost effectiveness by working with multiple partners to better find outcomes has been a positive thing. So I want to be supportive of those issues. Lastly, I know we have, we're going to talk about how do we budget for the future. You look at some of the surplus and say, let's save for the future. But I do think that we should look at some of this extra revenue and say, is there funding that we could put for inclusive economic development in the mid-year budget that helps us grow our economy? And I'd like the city manager and maybe the mayor and a couple of us to think about, how we do that best.
Let me, if I might, closing comment on the big picture here, if I might, because I know we focused a lot on a couple of very important pieces of this. The questions are important, but in terms of the big picture, it is the city manager's recommendation and mine. We have $36 million. Okay, essentially, in total to carry over, and we're in good shape. But then if you look at the 5-year forecast, you see that there is some real red ink that I believe, and I'm confident that we as a city can manage. And certainly I look forward to that efficiency report that comes back that shows us different ways, and some more palatable than others, but many of them eminently doable, where we can make savings and or achieve additional revenues that address some or all of the longer-term red ink problem. In the meantime, you have the Measure U committees up and running now, both the investment committee as well as the advisory committee. And they're working hard. And what I would like to suggest, and am suggesting, I think the manager agrees, is that we carry over the $36 million. Now, we are doing some things here in the mid-year. We're doing the fuel network. We're doing the pop-ups. We're doing some other things. But we carry over the $36 million. Then we have a budget discussion about how much of that maybe should sit in reserve and how much should go towards the Measure U implementation. And of course, I'm going to stand for investing as much of it as possible reasonably in the Measure U implementation. That's on top of the bond discussion that we're going to begin having tonight. But I think it's our feeling that with the exception of a couple of things that are recommended in this budget, including the pop-ups and the fuel network and the CSOs, which I support all of them, that we don't load up here mid-year, and that we begin the budget process where we take that 36 and, again, we spend most of it.
Can I clarify, Mayor? It is 33.4 million.
Plus, plus, if I'm looking at this, it's 33.4 plus the anticipated end-of-year fund balance for 2021, which is 2.736 million.
Okay.
Yes.
Big picture. We're gonna,
Optimistic.
you know what? Big picture. And we don't have it yet. I understand that. And we're gonna have a May revision with the governor. We may have some more updates in terms of revenue in the spring, and the economy's still going well. So we've got some real money. But I want to begin this new Measure U tranche, if you will, together, beginning right away, as soon as we launch into the 2021 budget season. And recognize, by the way, that we've already invested a lot of Measure U money in youth programs. I mean, look at what we've done over this first year between the transit $1 million investment, which I hope and will fight to make a permanent part of the city budget, because that's a huge piece of what Jay and others have worked for and fought for years. The pop-ups, the capital investments in the ball fields and the different community centers and all that. There's a long list here. And we need to continue that, but that's the amount we're gonna have, between 33 and 36, and we wanna keep some in reserve because of the red ink, but we'll debate that, and then go forward with a robust Measure U plan, starting as soon as we pass this mid-year, okay?
I don't disagree with that, Mr. Mayor. The only thing that I was pointing out is, again, if we focus on, as our conversation on inclusive economic development, particularly in areas that have vacant lots don't produce a lot of tax revenue for the city, so.
If we got any good ideas, bring them forward, get them through the committee, and we could take them up at any time, absolutely. I want to thank the budget staff, Don and your team.
Can I make a comment on that very quickly?
Yes.
It would be great, and I think this is Mr. Jasso. Hi there. If we can get kind of a schedule on Measure U and what's going to the committee, like what's in process, what's going to the Measure U committee, and when we might start seeing some of those projects, that would be helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah, I need a motion on this. Yes, please.
Just based on everything I've heard today, I think we're moving in the right direction. I think we can have a broader conversation when the entire council is here with us, and I think we will. And so I will move that we take this budget to the full council.
Excellent. Moved and seconded. Again, thank you to the budget staff. I know this is a lot of work, and you've done a great job. Howard, thank you so much reconciling all of it. Got an opportunity to do it all here if we do it right. And I think this is sound. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes. Okay, let's go to closed session. We'll resume the full council at 5 o'clock. Thank you. Oh, can we call to order?
Mr. Merritt, it appears we have a quorum. You may adjourn to closed session.
Okay, we're adjourned to closed.